Hello, campers. Let's talk about how to deal with the disturbing parts of the Bible. And the Bible has some disturbing parts. Specifically, God does things in the Bible that are troubling. And there is the standard list of things that God does that have given Christians and Jews over the centuries great pause. For example, God drowns humanity in chapter 6 of the Bible, right? That escalated quickly. God later orders the extermination of the Canaanites to create a pure land where his pure people can live. And God in general tends to respond to disobedience on the part of the Israelites by some physical harm or death. In portions of the Bible, God acts like a ruthless overlord. And this is the thing, folks, this is not a new insight. Throughout history, there have been Christians and Jews who have seen these portrayals of God to be morally problematic. So here's my point. Sometimes when I talk about this topic of God's retribution of violence, people respond by saying something like, but how can you judge God? By what standard can you, a puny human, judge the creator of the universe? You're using human standards for judging God, but you're sinful and God is God, so it's best just to accept all this lest God get violent on you. Threat of hell. That response is not convincing to me. Why? Because it makes an assumption. Specifically, it makes an assumption about the Bible. What is that assumption? It makes the assumption that the Bible, all of it, is simply the objective standard for telling us about God's character. That is the problem with that response. It makes that assumption. Why make it? In fact, it assumes something of the Bible that in fact creates this problem to begin with. When you look to the Bible to be something like that, you're going to have to accept everything the Bible says about every topic. Rather than seeing the Bible's morally problematic depiction of God as objective truth for all time, maybe, and this is just one approach, let me just throw this out there, maybe we should see these portrayals as a window onto the biblical writers' understanding of God's character, right? In their time, in their place, and under their circumstances. I never get tired of saying that much of the Bible is a product of the Iron Age, where religions flourished, and they all seem to have certain themes in common, namely that their gods are warriors and fierce warriors, and this is how they mete out justice by violence. So maybe that's one way to look at it. So let's bring this to a close. The Bible speaks with many voices. And not all biblical writers portray God as violent and reactionary. Some do, others don't. And I think the way to approach this issue with these various voices is not to double down on one part of the Bible that says all these violent things and say, well, that's objective truth. I think the way to approach it is to begin by acknowledging, first of all, just the history of Christian and Jewish thought on this very topic. Right, but it's also to acknowledge the hard work of Christian faith, the hard work of biblical interpretation, and just to be honest with ourselves, and not to expect the Bible to be a Christian owner's manual that just drops knowledge on us. That has always been the way in the Christian and Jewish traditions. Not, well, the Bible says it, I believe it, and that settles it. But serious and honest engagement with disturbing parts of the Bible. All this is to say, it is okay to read the Bible with a critical eye. In fact, when it comes to the topic of divine violence, we don't have a choice.